Would you risk everything to help a child you barely know, only to discover she's your own daughter? Andrew Harrington was a man of wealth, a man who saw his world through numbers, assets, and profit margins. He walked in polished shoes, wore tailored suits, and spoke in boardrooms where fortunes were made with the stroke of a pen. But on that cold, overcast afternoon, his world collided with a life he could never have imagined. Andrew had come to collect overdue rent from a rundown apartment building he owned, a minor property in his vast portfolio, tucked away in a neighborhood he rarely visited. The narrow hallways smelled of old wood and damp walls, the paint peeling, the lights flickering with a tired hum. He hated this place, hated that it was part of his empire. But it was profitable, and that was all that mattered. When he knocked on the door of apartment 4B, he expected excuses, maybe a tearful plea for an extension. What he found instead stopped him cold. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room where a young girl no older than 10 sat hunched over an ancient sewing machine. Her tiny fingers, wrapped in makeshift bandages, guided the fabric beneath the needle with a skill far beyond her years. Her eyes were focused, her face marked by exhaustion. "Who are you?" the girl asked without looking up. I'm Andrew Harrington. I'm here about the rent." "It's 2 weeks overdue," he stammered, feeling an unfamiliar discomfort. The girl paused, her fingers stilling the fabric. "My mother is sleeping," she said quietly but firmly. "Can I help you with anything?" Andrew's gaze swept the room. It was small, cluttered with colorful fabrics stacked neatly in one corner. The air was thick with the scent of thread and dust, a place that seemed to hold stories in its silence. His tailored Italian suit, his polished shoes, they felt out of place here, almost obscene. "I'm here for the rent," he repeated, his voice less certain. The girl nodded, stood up, and walked to a small wooden box on a rickety table. She pulled out a crumpled envelope and handed it to him. "It's only half," she admitted. "The rest will come when I finish these dresses." Andrew opened the envelope, his fingers brushing against the worn bills inside. He felt a rush of embarrassment he couldn't quite explain. How old are you?" 10, she replied, returning to her sewing machine without another word. Before he could speak again, a fit of harsh coughing echoed from the bedroom beyond. The girl's eyes flicked toward the door, but she showed no fear, only a quiet resignation. "My mother is sick," she explained, threading the needle with practiced ease. "But I can finish these in time. Mrs. Patterson pays well." Andrew swallowed, feeling an uncomfortable knot form in his chest. You shouldn't have to do this." "I have to," she replied simply. "It's my responsibility." Responsibility. The word felt like a sharp rebuke. Andrew had always thought of responsibility as numbers, contracts, and obligations. But here, in this cramped room, it was a child's burden, a weight that seemed far too heavy for such small shoulders. "What's your name?" he asked, almost as an afterthought. Maya Johnson." Andrew hesitated, his mind racing with questions. Where was the father? Why wasn't this child in school? But he knew the answers were complex, wrapped in the quiet struggle of poverty, something he had never truly known. I'll check back later," he murmured, turning to leave. But as he stepped out into the cold, a strange feeling washed over him, a discomfort that refused to fade. He climbed into his sleek silver Mercedes, the leather seats cradling him in luxury. But through the tinted windows, he watched the old building shrink in the distance, and a thought gnawed at him. Was this what his wealth had become? A series of faceless properties, extracting money from people like Maya and her mother. Was that all he was? 2 days later, an unexpected call interrupted his meeting. "Mr. Harrington, this is St. Mary's Medical Center. We're calling about a patient, Angela Johnson. You were listed as her emergency contact by her daughter." He didn't remember giving anyone his number. But the name struck him, Johnson. Without a second thought, he left the boardroom, ignoring the surprised glances of his colleagues. At the hospital, he found Maya sitting alone in the waiting area, her small hands clutching her lap, her eyes red from crying in secret. "They won't let me see her," she whispered when she saw him. "They say I'm too young. They asked for a family member, so I gave them your name." Andrew stared at her, stunned. "Why me?" "Because you own our home. You're the closest thing I know to someone in charge." Her words struck him like a blow. He was a landlord, a businessman, a man who lived in penthouses and signed contracts. But to this child, he was the closest thing to help, to protection. While they waited, he learned more. Angela Johnson was a seamstress, working from home because her illness prevented her from taking on larger jobs. Maya had learned to sew by watching her, now taking on the work to keep them afloat. "You're just a child," he whispered. "So are a lot of people who work," she replied simply. And in that moment, Andrew felt something shift, a fracture in the wall he had built around his heart. He wasn't just a landlord anymore. He was standing at a crossroads, staring at a choice he never thought he'd have to make. Andrew Harrington didn't know why he stayed at the hospital that day. Maybe it was the way Maya sat, so still, so quiet, a child trying so hard to be brave. Or maybe it was the way she spoke, calm, certain, as if the world couldn't shake her. Either way, he stayed. The waiting room was cold, a sterile place of pale walls and murmured voices. Nurses walked briskly by, doctors consulted their charts, but no one seemed to notice the small girl clutching her worn, oversized coat, her tiny feet barely touching the floor. "Do you want something to eat?" Andrew asked, leaning forward. He wasn't used to feeling so unsure of himself. Maya shook her head. "I don't have money." "I do." For a moment her resolve wavered, but then she nodded. "A sandwich, but I have to save half for my mom." He didn't argue. He brought back a turkey sandwich and a small juice box and watched as she carefully tore the sandwich in half, wrapping one piece in the thin paper and tucking it into her coat pocket. Hours passed. Nurses came and went, but each time Maya looked up with hope, they would shake their heads. Angela Johnson was still being treated. "Is your mom going to be okay?" Andrew asked gently. "She's strong," Maya replied, but her voice was soft, uncertain. "But I don't know." Andrew felt a tightness in his chest. This girl, who barely reached his shoulder, was carrying a weight he couldn't imagine, a weight he had never known. Finally, a doctor approached. "Are you here for Angela Johnson?" "Yes," Andrew said, standing. "And you are?" "I'm Dr. Carter. Your niece's mother is stable for now." "But she has pneumonia, complicated by her existing conditions. We need to keep her for observation." "My mom, can I see her?" Maya's voice was so small, so fragile. The doctor hesitated. "Immediate family only." Andrew stepped forward. "I'm her uncle. I'm responsible for them." The doctor's skeptical look lingered, but he nodded. "All right." "Just for a few minutes." As they walked down the white hallway, Maya's tiny hand slipped into Andrew's without a word. It was a small gesture, but it struck him like a bolt. He squeezed back gently, leading her into the dim hospital room. Angela lay pale and still beneath thin hospital sheets, an oxygen mask over her face, her frail body nearly swallowed by the bed. Tubes and wires connected her to blinking machines, and her breathing was a soft, strained whisper. "Mom," Maya whispered, stepping closer. Angela's eyes fluttered open, her gaze slowly focusing. "Maya?" "I'm here, Mom. I'm here." A tear slipped down Maya's cheek, but she didn't sob. She didn't cry out. She just stood there, strong and steady. Andrew watched from the corner, feeling like an intruder, but he couldn't look away. The love between them was so raw, so powerful. A nurse entered quietly. "Sorry, but she needs to rest." Maya leaned forward, kissed her mother's forehead, and whispered, "I'll be back, I promise." Andrew guided her out, the door closing softly behind them. But as they stepped into the hallway, a woman in a neat suit approached. "Maya Johnson?" Maya looked up, eyes widening. "Yes. I'm Rachel Simmons, with Child Protective Services. We were notified of your situation." Maya's face went pale. No, please, I'm fine. I'm not alone." Rachel's eyes softened. "Sweetheart, it's just to make sure you're safe. Your mother is going to be here for a while, and we need to ensure you're looked after." I have somewhere to stay," Maya insisted, her voice trembling. I can stay with him." She looked desperately at Andrew. Andrew felt a rush of panic. He wasn't ready for this. He didn't even know what he was doing here. But when he looked into Maya's pleading eyes, the fear vanished. "Yes, she can stay with me," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. Rachel's skeptical look returned. "Are you a relative?" I'm her landlord, but I'm also a friend, and I won't let her be alone." "That's highly unusual, Mr. Harrington." "Andrew Harrington. I'll need to confirm your information and ensure this is appropriate. For now, Maya will stay here in the hospital until we can sort this out." Rachel's words were a cold reminder of how fragile this situation was. Andrew had stepped into a world he didn't understand. But as he looked at Maya, trembling, trying so hard to be brave, he knew he couldn't just walk away. "I'll be back tomorrow," he promised her, and he meant it. Maya nodded, her tiny figure dwarfed by the hospital's vast hallway. That night, as Andrew lay in his penthouse with its panoramic city view, he couldn't shake the image of Maya's face, her small hands clutching the sandwich, her quiet strength beside her mother's hospital bed. How had his life, filled with luxury and ease, suddenly been invaded by the struggles of a little girl and her dying mother? But even more than that, why did he care? In the darkness, Andrew's phone buzzed. A text from his lawyer, Samuel Carter. "Andrew, this is a mess, taking responsibility for a child. This could complicate everything." Andrew stared at the message, then put the phone face down. For the first time in his life, he didn't care about complications. He cared about Maya. The next morning, Andrew Harrington arrived at St. Mary's Medical Center with a sense of urgency he hadn't felt in years. His silver Mercedes seemed almost too loud, too bright for the quiet, somber street outside the hospital. But as he stepped out, all his attention was on one thing: Maya. He found her in the waiting area, curled up in a hard plastic chair, her small figure wrapped in the oversized coat she always wore. Her eyes were closed, but there was no peace on her face, just exhaustion. "Morning, Maya," he whispered gently. Her eyes fluttered open, a brief moment of confusion fading as she recognized him. "Mr. Harrington, you came back. I told you I would." Maya rubbed her eyes, trying to sit up straighter. "They said I can't see Mom until later. She's still not okay." Andrew nodded, then glanced around. The sterile smell of antiseptic, the distant beeping of machine sit was a place of waiting, of helplessness. But he wouldn't let Maya feel helpless. "Have you eaten anything?" he asked. Maya shook her head. "I didn't want to leave her." "Come on," he smiled, reaching out his hand. "Let's get some breakfast." The hospital cafeteria was a strange mix of plastic trays, lukewarm coffee, and the quiet murmurs of weary families. Andrew let Maya choose whatever she wanted: pancakes, a small fruit cup, and a carton of milk. But as they sat down, he noticed she ate slowly, as if saving each bite. "You don't have to ration it," he chuckled gently. "There's more if you're still hungry." She gave him a small, shy smile. "It's just, I'm used to making food last." Andrew's heart tightened. "You won't have to worry about that." "Not while I'm here." When they returned to the waiting area, A nurse approached them. Angela Johnson is awake now. You can see her, but only for a short while. Maya was on her feet instantly. Can he come with me? The nurse hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but just a few minutes. They walked together into the small, pale room where Angela lay, her face still pale, but her eyes open, a weak smile touching her lips as she saw Maya. Mom, Maya whispered, rushing to her side, carefully taking her mother's hand. Hey, sweetheart. Angela's voice was a fragile whisper. Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm here. Mr. Harrington, help me. Angela's gaze shifted to Andrew, a mix of surprise and gratitude. Thank you for being here. Andrew stepped forward, feeling awkward but determined. It's nothing. I'm just making sure she's safe. Angela's tired eyes softened. She's strong. Always has been. Too strong for a child. Andrew didn't know what to say to that. He just nodded, trying not to show the ache in his chest. But before they could say more, a gentle knock interrupted them. Rachel Simmons stepped in, her expression a careful balance of professionalism and concern. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need to speak with you, Mr. Harrington. Andrew exchanged a glance with Maya, then followed Rachel out into the hallway. I've spoken with my supervisors, Rachel began, her voice calm but firm. They are concerned about Maya's situation. If her mother remains hospitalized, we need to ensure Maya has a safe place to stay. She can stay with me, Andrew replied instantly. That's unusual, Mr. Harrington. You're not a relative, but I'm here. I care about her. Isn't that enough? Care isn't enough in legal terms, Rachel explained. We'll need temporary guardianship paperwork, proof of your ability to provide for her, and most importantly, her consent. Andrew glanced back at the door to Angela's room. I can do all of that. Rachel's skeptical expression softened just slightly. I'll be in touch. For now, make sure Maya is okay. Andrew returned to the room, trying to mask his anxiety. Maya was leaning close to her mother, whispering quietly. Angela's hand rested on her daughter's head, fingers gently brushing through the tangled curls. Maya, sweetie, you have to be strong, Angela whispered. No matter what happens, no matter where you are, I will. But you'll get better, right? Maya's voice was so small, so hopeful. Angela smiled weakly. Of course, my love. I'll always be with you. The words were meant to comfort, but to Andrew, they felt like a final goodbye. After a few minutes, they stepped back into the hallway. Maya looked up at him, her dark eyes filled with questions. Can I stay with you? Yes, he replied without hesitation, but I have to sort out some paperwork. I can help, she said quickly. I can clean. I can sew. You don't have to do anything, Maya. Just be a kid. She frowned, as if the concept was foreign to her. When they stepped outside, the cold wind swept through the parking lot. Maya shivered, clutching her coat tighter. Come on, Andrew said, opening the car door. Let's get you somewhere warm. Back at his penthouse, the towering glass walls offered a breathtaking view of the city, but Maya's gaze stayed down, her small fingers tracing the seams of her coat. You can choose any room you want, Andrew offered, trying to sound cheerful. I don't want to break anything, she whispered. You won't. He led her to a cozy guest room, the bed neatly made, the window overlooking the city skyline. But Maya didn't sit down. Instead, she stood by the door, looking lost. Are you hungry? Andrew asked. She shook her head. I should work. Mrs. Patterson paid me in advance. You don't need to work now, but I do. It's my responsibility. Andrew sighed, kneeling down to her level. Maya, right now, your only responsibility is to be okay. I'll take care of the rest. Her eyes searched his, a mix of confusion and gratitude. Why are you helping me? Because you deserve to be helped. That night, as the city lights shimmered outside his penthouse, Andrew sat alone in his study. He stared at the empty screen of his laptop, but his thoughts were miles away in a cramped apartment, in a hospital room, in the quiet strength of a little girl who had already seen too much of life's cruelty. And for the first time in a long time, Andrew didn't feel like a powerful man. He just felt human. In the days that followed, Andrew Harrington found his life twisting in ways he never expected. Maya had settled into his penthouse, though settled was hardly the right word. She moved quietly, always careful, as if she might accidentally disturb the perfection around her. She never touched anything she didn't need, never left a trace of her presence beyond the neat little corner of the guest room she called her own. Andrew tried to make her comfortable, bought her warm clothes, stocked the kitchen with snacks, even set up a small space with a desk and art supplies. But Maya seemed hesitant, always asking, "Are you sure?" or "Is this okay?" One evening, as Andrew worked at his desk, he heard the faint hum of a sewing machine. He followed the sound to the guest room and found Maya, her small fingers guiding fabric beneath the needle. The dress she was sewing was simple, but the stitching was precise, each line perfectly straight. "Maya?" he called gently. She looked up, her eyes wide, as if she'd been caught doing something wrong. I needed to finish this," she explained, her voice small. "Mrs. Patterson paid me in advance. If I don't finish it, we won't have enough for the rent." Andrew's chest tightened. "You don't have to worry about that anymore." "But I do," Maya whispered, her gaze falling back to the fabric. "Mom says we have to earn our way, that nothing is ever free." He didn't know what to say to that. He watched her for a moment, the way her fingers moved with a skill far beyond her years. Finally, he spoke. "Would you like a better sewing machine? Something newer?" Maya's eyes lit up for just a moment, but then the light faded. "This one works fine." But Andrew couldn't let it go. The next day, while Maya was at the hospital visiting her mother, he brought in a sleek, brand-new sewing machine and set it up in the guest room. He thought it might make her happy, that maybe she would see it as a gift, a sign that she didn't have to struggle anymore. But when Maya returned and saw the new machine, she froze. Her fingers tightened on the old one, her shoulders hunched. Did you throw it away?" she whispered. "No," Andrew said quickly. "It's just, this one is better. It's faster, smoother. I thought it might help." "It's not mine," Maya whispered, her voice shaking. "The old one. It was my mom's. It's what she taught me on." Andrew felt a wave of shame. He had meant well, but he hadn't understood. "I'm sorry, Maya." "I didn't know." Her shoulders relaxed slightly. "Can I keep it?" "Of course. I'll bring it back right now." Later that evening, after returning the old sewing machine to its place, he sat in the living room, a quiet frustration gnawing at him. Why was this so hard? Why couldn't he just make things better for her? His phone buzzed. Samuel Carter, his lawyer. "Andrew, we have a problem." "What now?" Andrew sighed. "It's Rachel Simmons. Child Protective Services has some concerns. They're questioning why a wealthy single man with no prior connection to the child is suddenly taking her in. They're worried about appearances." "Appearances?" Andrew's voice rose. "I'm helping her. Isn't that what matters? Not to them. They need proof of your ability to care for Maya, and they want to ensure it's not just some impulsive decision." Andrew clenched his jaw. "Fine. What do they need?" "A background check, proof of income, which you have references, and they want to speak with Maya, privately." "Privately?" "Why?" "To make sure she's safe, Andrew. This is standard procedure." Andrew rubbed his temples. "All right." "When?" "Tomorrow. I'll meet you there." That night, as he tried to focus on his work, Andrew felt a cold knot of anxiety in his stomach. Would they take her away? Would Maya think he had failed her? But the next day, when Rachel Simmons met with Maya in a quiet room at the hospital, Andrew waited in the hallway, pacing like a nervous parent. Finally, the door opened. Maya stepped out, her expression calm, but her eyes found Andrew immediately. "Well?" he asked. Rachel followed, her notepad tucked under her arm. "Maya speaks very highly of you, Mr. Harrington. She told me how you've helped her, how you've made her feel safe." Andrew's shoulders relaxed slightly. "So, what now?" "I'll need to finalize some paperwork, but for now, Maya can stay with you." Maya's small hand slipped into his, and for the first time, Andrew felt a warmth that wasn't just relief, it was something more. That evening, back at the penthouse, Maya curled up on the couch with a book, her small frame almost swallowed by the plush cushions. Andrew brought her a cup of hot chocolate, and she smiled a real, bright smile. "Thank you," she whispered, taking the cup with both hands. "For the chocolate?" "For everything." He hesitated, then sat beside her. "Maya, I'm not perfect at this. I don't always know the right thing to do. But I want you to feel safe here. I want you to know that you don't have to worry." "I know," she said softly, "but I still want to help." Andrew smiled. "And you will, but not by struggling, by being you." As the city lights glittered beyond the window, Andrew watched Maya's eyes grow heavy, her head gently resting against the cushion. He reached for a blanket, carefully draping it over her small frame, and for the first time, he realized something. This wasn't just about helping her, it was about something more. He needed her, too. As the weeks passed, Andrew Harrington's life shifted in ways he never imagined. What began as an impulsive decision to help a struggling girl had become something far deeper. His penthouse, once a sanctuary of silence and solitude, now echoed with the quiet hum of a sewing machine, the soft rustle of fabric, and the gentle murmur of Maya's voice as she read aloud from her schoolbooks. But beyond the walls of his home, things were not as peaceful. News of Andrew's unusual guardianship of Maya began to ripple through his social circles. His business associates whispered behind his back, curious and suspicious. They couldn't understand why a wealthy, successful man would take in a poor child with no connection to his world. "Andrew, this could be a problem," Samuel Carter warned one afternoon, sitting across from him in the sleek, glass-walled office of Harrington Industries. "It's not a problem," Andrew replied firmly. "I'm helping her." "Yes, but appearances matter. You're a public figure. People are asking questions. Why her? Why now? And most importantly, who is she, really?" "She's Maya, a little girl who needed help." "But what if she's more than that?" Samuel leaned forward, his voice lowering. "What if someone finds out who her mother is?" "Who you are?" Andrew's jaw tightened. "You think that matters?" "It could, especially if someone starts digging." Andrew stared out the window, the city skyline a glittering sea of glass and steel. He had built a life of order, of predictability, but now everything felt fragile, like a thread stretched too tight. "Let them dig," he whispered. "I won't abandon her." But the tension wasn't just outside his home, it had crept in too. Maya was trying her best to adjust. She spent her evenings sewing, her small fingers guiding the needle with practiced skill. Andrew tried to get her interested in other things, books, even a laptop for her schoolwork, but she always returned to the sewing machine. One evening, as Andrew sat working in his study, he heard a quiet knock. Maya stood at the door, her expression hesitant. "Can I ask you something?" she whispered. "Of course." She stepped inside, fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. Why do you help me?" Andrew leaned back, the weight of the question settling over him. "Because you needed help." "But I'm not your family." "I'm not your responsibility." No, you're not, he admitted. But sometimes, family isn't just about blood. Sometimes it's about choice. Maya's eyes softened. I never had a choice. You do now. She nodded slowly, but the uncertainty in her eyes didn't fade. The next morning, a new problem arrived, this time in the form of Caroline Bennett. She was a senior executive at Harrington Industries, a woman known for her sharp tongue and ruthless ambition. Caroline had always seen Andrew as a threat, and now she saw an opportunity. Andrew, she smiled, stepping into his office without knocking. I hear you've become a guardian. I've taken in Maya temporarily, yes. Temporarily or permanently? Andrew's expression remained calm. Why do you care? Oh, I care because the board cares. They're curious. Why would a man like you, with your background, suddenly decide to play father? Andrew stood, his eyes meeting hers. I don't play anything, Caroline. I help because I can. Of course, but you know how rumors are. They have a way of growing. She left with a smile, but Andrew knew better than to dismiss her. Caroline was dangerous, always calculating, always watching. That evening, as he returned home, he found Maya sitting on the floor of the living room, surrounded by fabrics. Her sewing machine whirred quietly, her fingers darting over the cloth. But there was something else, newspaper clippings, old photographs, scattered around her. Maya? What's all this? She looked up, startled. I was just trying to understand. Understand what? My mom. She used to tell me stories. About a big company, about promises that were never kept. And I found these in an old box she kept. Andrew knelt beside her, his gaze sweeping over the papers. There were old photos of workers, some smiling, some serious. And in one, a young woman stood beside a group of seamstresses, a woman with the same soft, determined eyes as Maya. Your mum worked for... She used to sew uniforms for a big company. But they never paid her what they promised. She said they tricked her, tricked all of them. Andrew's chest tightened. And you think that company was mine? Maya's gaze didn't waver. I don't know, but it feels like something is missing, like there's a secret. Andrew took a deep breath. Maya, I promise you I will help you find out the truth. But as he said the words, a cold fear gnawed at him. What if the truth wasn't something he wanted to know? The next day, while Maya was at school, Andrew dug through old company records. He searched for any mention of the sewing contracts, the employees who had worked on them. And then he found it an old subsidiary company, long dissolved, that had supplied uniforms for the previous leadership's firm. Angela Johnson's name was on the list, and just below it, another name leapt out at him, Caroline Bennett, listed as the legal director at the time. A knock at his office door snapped him back. Caroline stood there, her sharp smile never reaching her eyes. Everything all right, Andrew? You look troubled. Just going over some old records. Oh, history can be so enlightening, can't it? She whispered, leaning against the doorframe. But be careful. Some things are better left buried. Andrew's jaw clenched. Some things deserve to see the light. Caroline's smile faltered just slightly. Well, let's hope you don't dig too deep. When she left, Andrew stared at the papers, his heart pounding. Maya's mother had been part of his family's compania company that had made promises it never kept, and Caroline had been there, right in the middle of it. That night, as he tucked Maya into bed, she whispered, "Did you find out anything?" "I did," he replied, his voice soft but steady. "But there's more to uncover." She looked up at him, her dark eyes so full of hope. "Will you help me?" "I promise, Maya." But as he sat alone in his study, the city lights flickering beyond the glass, Andrew realized this wasn't just about helping Maya anymore. This was about righting a wrong he never knew existed. Andrew Harrington's days became a quiet storm of secrets and suspicions. Each morning, he walked Maya to school, her small hand slipping into his without hesitation. But the moment she disappeared through the school gates, his world became a maze of unanswered questions. He had tried to protect Maya, to give her a safe place, but now it felt like he was walking a tightrope. The more he learned about her mother's past, the more he realized he was uncovering something far larger than just a forgotten promise. The records he found weren't just old contracts. They were a map of deceit, a network of workers who had been promised shares in the company's profits, but who had been dismissed without compensation. The promise had been buried beneath layers of legal jargon, and at the heart of it all was one name: Caroline Bennett. Caroline had been the legal director for the subsidiary company, the one that had employed Angela Johnson. She had overseen the contracts, altered them, and ensured that the workers received nothing. But what shocked Andrew most was a faded document tucked at the bottom of the file, a handwritten note from his father, the company founder, thanking Caroline for her discretion in handling the matter. His father had known. He hadn't just allowed the injustice, he had directed it. Andrew leaned back in his leather office chair, his hands trembling. His father had always been a man of principles, or so he thought. But this was a betrayal of everything Andrew had believed. A sharp knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Samuel Carter stepped in, his expression serious. "Andrew, we need to talk." "Let me guess, more questions about Maya," Andrew muttered, rubbing his temples. "No, it's Caroline." Andrew's head snapped up. "What about her?" "She's been asking questions, digging into your connection with Maya, into Angela's past. And she's not just curious, she's looking for leverage." Andrew's jaw clenched. "Leverage for what?" "Power. Control. If she can prove you're hiding something, she can use it against you." Andrew leaned forward, his gaze sharp. "She already knows, Sam. She was there. She's the one who covered it all up." Samuel's eyes widened. "You're serious?" "I have the documents. My father was part of it." "Caroline orchestrated it." "Andrew, this is explosive. If you expose this, it could destroy her, but it could also bring everything down around you. Your father's legacy, the company's reputation." "Then it needs to come down," Andrew whispered, a quiet rage burning in his voice. "Those workers were promised something. They were lied to. They lost everything. Your father is gone, and whatever legacy he left, it's poisoned." Samuel nodded slowly. "All right. Then we do this carefully. We need proof, irrefutable proof. I have the documents, and Maya, she found more." "More?" Her mother kept records, newspaper clippings, receipts, letters. She knew she had been cheated, and she held on to the truth. Samuel sighed, a faint smile touching his lips. "Smart woman. That's where Maya gets it." That evening, as Andrew returned home, he found Maya sitting at the kitchen table, her small hands carefully pressing a piece of fabric beneath the sewing machine. But beside her was an old, worn box own he hadn't seen before. "What's that?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. Maya looked up. It's my mom's box. She kept everything in here. Letters, photos, even some old documents." Andrew's heart raced. "Can I see?" Maya hesitated, then nodded. I want to know too." They sifted through the contents together, photos of Angela as a young woman, smiling beside a group of seamstresses. Receipts for payments that never matched the promised amounts. And then, a letter handwritten, addressed to Angela. "Angela, you were right. They lied to us. We were never going to get those shares. I tried to fight it, but they shut me down. I'm sorry. I don't want you to lose hope, but I can't do this alone. Maria." Andrew's fingers tightened around the letter. They knew. They tried to fight. Maya's voice was small, but they lost. Not anymore, Andrew whispered. Not if we can prove this. But the next day, Caroline struck first. A call from the board. An emergency meeting. Andrew, Samuel's voice was sharp over the phone. She's going for it, trying to paint you as reckless, a danger to the company. And she's using Maya against you. I'm not abandoning her. I didn't say you should, but be ready. This could get ugly. The boardroom was a cold, glass-walled arena, the city's skyline a distant blur beyond the windows. Caroline stood at the head of the table, her smile a knife hidden behind red lipstick. "Gentlemen, we have a serious concern," she began, her voice smooth. "Andrew Harrington has taken in a minor child under questionable circumstances. We must consider the impact on our company's image." Questionable. Andrew's voice was steady, but his fists clenched beneath the table. A wealthy, single man suddenly taking in a child with no legal connection. It raises questions. I'm protecting her. Her mother is sick. She has no one else. Or so you claim. But how do we know? How do we know this isn't some attempt to distract from something else? Perhaps a scandal. Andrew's jaw tightened. The only scandal here is your desperation, Caroline. Caroline's smile faltered, just for a second. Is that so? Because I know exactly what you did. And I have the proof. Silence fell over the room. Proof of what? One of the board members asked, his voice cautious. Andrew leaned forward, his gaze locked on Caroline. Proof that Caroline Bennett orchestrated a scheme to deny employees their rightful earnings, that she defrauded them, covered it up, and used my father to protect herself. Caroline's face paled. This is ridiculous. Lies. Andrew pulled out the folder, the faded documents, the letters, the records. These are your signatures. These are the altered contracts. This is the promise made to those workers and broken. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. I will not be threatened. I will not stand by while you destroy this company with your greed. Andrew, you. No, Caroline, you lied. And now, everyone will know. As he stepped out of the boardroom, Samuel caught up to him. Andrew, are you sure about this? I'm not just doing this for Maya. I'm doing this because it's the right thing. But as they walked toward the elevator, Andrew's phone buzzed. A message from Rachel Simmons. Andrew, we need to talk. It's about Maya's mother. The ride to St. Mary's Medical Center felt like a race against time. Andrew Harrington's mind was a whirlwind of questions. What had Rachel Simmons discovered? What could be so urgent that she needed to speak with him immediately? He found her waiting by the reception desk, her expression serious. Maya was with her, sitting on a plastic chair, her small hands folded tightly in her lap. Rachel, Andrew called, his voice tight with worry. Andrew, we need to talk, privately. Andrew looked at Maya, her wide, dark eyes watching him. Maya, sweetheart, can you wait here for a moment? Maya nodded, but there was a fear in her gaze that made his heart ache. Rachel led him down a quiet hallway, away from the crowded waiting area. When they were alone, she turned to him, her voice low and urgent. It's about Angela Johnson. Her condition is worsening. Pneumonia has developed into a severe lung infection. They're doing everything they can, but it doesn't look good. Andrew's chest tightened. And Maya? Does she know? No, not yet. I thought it was best to tell you first. Andrew leaned against the wall, his hands trembling. He had grown to care for Maya like his own daughter. The thought of her losing her mother felt like a blow to his own heart. What can I do? He whispered. Just be here for her. And there's something else. I looked into Angela's records. She has no other family listed. No one except Maya. Of course. She's all Maya has. Rachel hesitated. But that's the thing. Angela never listed Maya's father. It's like he doesn't exist. But in her medical records, there's a note something the doctors found. Andrew's brow furrowed. A note? Angela has a rare blood type. And so does Maya. It's a type that is genetically linked one that only a small percentage of the population has. Andrew's heart raced. Rachel, what are you saying? I'm saying it's possible that Maya's father could be someone close. Someone you might know. Andrew's mind reeled. The possibility seemed absurd. But then, was it? Does Angela know? He whispered. I don't know. But you need to be prepared. If something happens to her, Maya will need you. Andrew ran a hand through his hair, struggling to breathe. I don't know what to do. Be honest with her. Be there for her. That's all you can do. They returned to the waiting area where Maya looked up, her eyes searching his face. Is my mom okay? Andrew forced a smile, kneeling down beside her. She's fighting, sweetheart. But you know she's strong. Maya nodded, but her fingers twisted the hem of her shirt. Can I see her? Not yet. But soon. Over the next few days, Angela's condition worsened. Maya spent most of her time by her mother's bedside, whispering quiet stories, holding her frail hand. Andrew stayed close, always there when she needed him, always ready to comfort her. But in the quiet hours of the night, when Maya slept curled up in the hospital chair, Andrew found himself watching Angela, his thoughts racing. Could it be true? Could Maya somehow be connected to him in a way he never imagined? One evening, as the sky turned a dusky orange beyond the hospital windows, Angela stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, and she smiled weakly at Maya, who was dozing beside her. Andrew stepped forward, his voice soft. Angela? Her gaze shifted to him, a faint recognition in her tired eyes. You're Andrew. Yes, I've been helping Maya. I care about her. Angela's smile grew, just a little. She's always been strong, so much like her father. Andrew's breath caught. Angela. Who is her father? But Angela's eyes were already drifting closed, her strength fading. Protect her. Promise me. Protect her. I promise, Andrew whispered, his heart pounding. But his question remained unanswered. The next morning, as they stepped out of the hospital room, Maya's eyes were red from crying, but she stood straight, her jaw set in quiet determination. I won't leave her. I won't leave her alone, she whispered. You won't have to, Andrew promised, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. But outside the hospital, trouble was waiting. A sleek, black car pulled up, and the door swung open. Caroline Bennett stepped out, her sharp smile cutting through the cold air. Andrew, I didn't think I'd find you here. He frowned. What do you want, Caroline? Oh, just a friendly visit, to see how you're handling your new responsibilities. Her gaze flicked to Maya, a faint sneer twisting her lips. Leave us alone. Leave you alone? Oh, I don't think so. You see, the board has been hearing some concerning rumors. A scandal, perhaps? There's no scandal. I'm helping Maya and her mother. Caroline stepped closer, her voice lowering. Are you? Or are you hiding something? Andrew stepped between her and Maya. Get out of here, Caroline. Oh, I will. But know this, I'm watching. And so is the board. They want to know just what you're hiding. She returned to her car, the engine roaring to life as she drove away. Maya looked up at Andrew, her small hand slipping into his. Who was that? No one important, he whispered. Let's get you something to eat. But even as he smiled at Maya, a cold fear gripped his heart. Caroline was circling, and she wouldn't stop until she found a way to destroy him. That night, as Maya slept on the couch, her head resting against a soft pillow, Andrew sat alone in the darkened living room. He stared at the city lights beyond the glass, his mind racing. Who was Maya's father? Could she somehow be connected to him? Or was it just a cruel twist of fate? His phone buzzed a message from Samuel Carter. Andrew, we need to talk. Caroline is pushing the board to investigate your connection to Maya. Be careful. Andrew leaned back, his gaze shifting to the sleeping girl on the couch. He had promised to protect her, but how could he protect her if he didn't even know the truth? The next morning, he made a decision. Maya, he whispered gently, waking her with a soft touch. Get dressed. We're going to see someone. Who? She asked, rubbing her eyes. A doctor, someone who can help us find answers. The morning sun cast a pale golden light over the city as Andrew Harrington drove Maya to the clinic. His hands gripped the steering wheel a little too tightly, his mind racing with questions, doubts, and a quiet, growing fear. Maya sat beside him, silent but alert, her dark eyes watching the city rush by. Where are we going? She finally asked, her voice soft but steady. To see a doctor, Andrew replied, trying to keep his tone calm. Just a quick test. What kind of test? Andrew hesitated. A DNA test. Maya's brows furrowed. What's that for? It's just to make sure of something. To make sure I can keep you safe. She didn't ask any more questions, but the quiet tension in the car seemed to thicken. When they arrived at the clinic, a nurse led them into a small, sterile room. Andrew filled out the forms, his name and Maya's written side by side. The nurse took a swab from inside Maya's cheek, then did the same for Andrew. It will take a few days for the results, the nurse explained with a polite smile. We'll contact you directly. Back in the car, Maya finally spoke. Mr. Harrington, am I in trouble? No, sweetheart, you're not in trouble. I'm just trying to protect you. From what? Andrew's hands tightened on the steering wheel. From people who want to hurt you. People like Caroline. Maya's gaze dropped to her lap. But why does she want to hurt us? Because she's afraid. Afraid of losing her power. And afraid of the truth. They returned to the penthouse, but the days that followed were a tense blur. Andrew tried to keep things normal. He helped Maya with her homework, listened to her talk about her friends at school, and watched her sew small, colorful pieces of fabric into beautiful dresses. But in the back of his mind, a storm was brewing. And then the call came. Andrew answered on the third ring, his voice steady, even as his heart raced. Hello? Mr. Harrington? The nurse's voice was calm. We have the results of your DNA test. Would you like them over the phone, or would you prefer to come in? Tell me now. Mr. Harrington, the test is positive. You are a genetic match. Maya is your biological daughter. The world seemed to tilt beneath him. He leaned against the kitchen counter, his legs suddenly weak. Thank you, he whispered, hanging up. He stared at the phone, his mind racing. Maya was his daughter. His own flesh and blood. Angela had never told him, had never reached out, had kept this secret for all these years. And now Maya's life, her entire existence, made a new kind of sense. Mr. Harrington? Maya's voice pulled him from the whirlwind of thoughts. Andrew turned, his eyes meeting hers. He crossed the room, knelt down to her level, and gently took her hands in his. Maya, I need to tell you something. Something important. Her eyes widened, a hint of fear in them. What is it? You're my daughter. Maya stared at him, her small fingers tightening around his. Your daughter? Yes. I didn't know. Not until now, but it's true. You're my daughter. Maya's lips trembled. But why didn't you know? I didn't know about your mother. I didn't know you existed. But I know now. And I promise, I will always be here for you. Tears filled Maya's eyes, and she threw her arms around him, clutching him tightly. I thought I didn't have anyone. You have me. You've always had me. But their moment was interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. Andrew stood, guiding Maya behind him as he opened it. Caroline Bennett stood in the hallway, a smug smile on her face. Andrew, I heard you've been doing some investigating. Get out, Caroline. Oh, but why would I? I just wanted to see how your little charity case is doing, or should I say, your daughter. Andrew's blood ran cold. How do you know? Oh, please. Did you really think you could hide it? A secret like that never stays buried. You have no right to come here. I have every right. The board is voting tomorrow on your position. They see you as a liability. A man with a secret child hiding the truth. What would that do to the company's image? Leave now. Caroline's smile twisted. Make me. But before Andrew could reply, Maya stepped forward, her small figure standing between them. Leave us alone. Caroline's smile faltered. Excuse me? You hurt my mom. You lied to all those people, and now you want to hurt us. But you can't. Andrew's chest swelled with pride, but his heart ached with fear. Brave little girl, Caroline sneered, but bravery doesn't save you from the truth. The truth is you're afraid, because we know what you did. Caroline's eyes narrowed. Careful, child. Don't say things you don't understand. I understand more than you think. Caroline's mask of calm slipped, and she turned, stalking down the hallway. But Andrew knew this wasn't over. He turned to Maya, his voice steady. Are you okay? Maya nodded, but her small hands were trembling. Will she hurt us? No, Andrew whispered, pulling her into his arms. I won't let her. That night, as the city lights glittered beyond the penthouse windows, Andrew sat in his study, a quiet determination settling over him. He had been a man of wealth, a man who valued profit and power. But now he was a father, and he would do whatever it took to protect his daughter. The story of Andrew Harrington and Maya Johnson is a powerful reminder that family is not just defined by blood, but by love, compassion, and responsibility. Andrew, a wealthy businessman who once measured his success by profit and power, discovers that true wealth is not about bank accounts, is about the people you choose to protect and care for. For older American audiences, this story speaks to the value of redemption and the ability to change, even after years of living a certain way. When Andrew learns about the unjust actions of his family's company, he chooses to right those wrongs, standing up for the people who were wronged, including Maya's mother. Instead of hiding from the truth, he faces it head-on, proving that it is never too late to make things right. Life is full of difficult choices, but it is in those moments that we discover who we truly are. Sometimes, a single act of kindness can change not only another person's life, but also our own. True legacy is not measured by wealth or reputation, it is measured by the lives we touch and the love we give.